Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the TMC Talk Show. My name is Sid Sudhir, and today we are here with another special guest who is, in fact, a good friend of mine, Andy Thompson. So, Andy, why don't you just take the chance to introduce yourself to everyone?
All right, for sure. My name's Andy Thompson. I'm a local car photographer. My Instagram name, for those of you that might know me, is Chi-Town Exotics. And I've been fortunate enough to involve myself with numerous opportunities over the years at a little bit of a younger age. And in the future, I'm looking to hopefully become a photojournalist in the area and then maybe pursue car photography on the side. So continue to grow my passion that I've developed over the past couple of years.
So I met Andy this past year at a car show in the local area, and his passion in journalism has already given him some pretty cool opportunities. So we'll make sure to talk about that. The first question I want to ask you is, what initially kind of sparked an interest for you in cars?
So when I was about 9 or 10 years old, my grandpa started telling me stories of some of the cars he'd had. Like I think when I was like 4 or 5, he had a BMW M3. It was like a E46, I think is a code name for it. And he would talk a lot about that. And then we would go to the local car show, like in the downtown area where I grew up. And he would like point out like if there was a car he liked, he'd point that out to me. And that was really cool. But then like the thing that got me personally interested in cars was I think it was like 2011. We were driving somewhere as a family to an outing, and there was a Ferrari F40 that drove by the other way. Like it was super loud. He was flooring it down. I think it was Ogden. And like from that point, like the F40 is my dream car, because like I remember that was the first car that got me interested. Like this is something that I want to learn more about, and I want to get more involved in the car scene. And that was a very young age, so I just kind of started going to more shows. And then I guess we'll get into that more later as this goes on. But yeah, I just kind of started going more to shows and like trying to involve myself more with cars and like try to see more cars like that, because I thought that was really cool at such a young age.
So really, car shows were the first place that you were kind of exposed to automobiles, and that's kind of what fostered your interest, you would say.
Oh yeah, for sure. So the first show that I vividly remember going to was the 2014 Lake Forest Concours, which unfortunately is canceled because there was a Mustang crash a few years ago, and people were just like not obeying the parking rules, so they had to cancel that show. But I remember in 2014, there was a silver Ferrari F50, there was an F40, there was a black McLaren P1 back when they were new, and that was the first place I ever got to see a Porsche 918. And you could get like up close and personal with these cars, and it was like, this is some of the latest and greatest machinery all in one place. And it really opened my eyes to the fact that Chicago has a really good car scene, because like I knew we were going to have a few hypercars. Like I didn't know it was that much. Like I hadn't really been out in the car scene that much locally. Like I didn't think that we had that many cars that could compete with like LA or Miami, like places where you expect to see nicer cars. Like seeing all of those in one place in Chicago was really cool. And so that kind of like shows like that, I was interested in finding more, like learning more about it to figure out like where can I see these cars besides just like in a dealership floor where it's like they go to get service and stuff anyway. So yeah, car shows definitely have been a good gateway for me to meet more cool car people and also to see like cooler cars overall.
Nice. So, from the very beginning, was photography always kind of a part of going to car shows for you, or was that something that you picked up later?
So I guess it sort of goes like secondary, because like in my Instagram bio, for example, I have enthusiast first, photographer second, because like I've always been passionate about cars, and like I enjoy going to see them. I like to capture the moment, but if there's some scenarios where it's like it's not the right time to take a picture, like if there's just too many people around, like I'll just appreciate the fact that I've seen it and maybe just take like a token picture on my phone to have. Like photography has been like a huge way for me to express my passion for cars, but I would say like it's sort of secondary to being a car guy overall, because I just want to I appreciate going out and seeing the cars and like also meeting the people behind them, and then just like kind of connecting with people that way. But then photography is definitely something I still enjoy doing and I intend to pursue in the future. So I would say it's a huge part of it, but it's not like the reason why I got into photography. It's kind of like I had a camera, started taking pictures of what I was seeing.
Interesting. I think that's pretty admirable, though, that you kind of, I know I've seen that thing in your bio, car enthusiast first, photographer second. But, so would you say that the thing that kind of kept you coming back to these car shows then, was it, just the connections that or like just the actual cars themselves?
I mean, it's definitely a mix of both because like when you like, there's some people that like I've met in the car community that like I consider to be honestly some of my best friends now, and like being able to talk to people like that have the same passion, like that's helped me become more of a people person overall, even like outside of like, car events and stuff. So, like it's like the cars is a huge part of it for sure. Because like if you know there was an event that last month had like some crazy hyper car, you're gonna want to go back and like, see what shows up next time. It's also like about seeing people that you've met and bonded with over the passion of cars, like you don't really get to see elsewhere because everybody that you know is usually at these events, and it's like a good way to see people that you form good friendships with. But obviously, the cars are a part of it too. So like it's kind of both. But once again, where it's like you want to meet cool car people, but obviously because there's a cool car there, you also want to go and be able to see that and hopefully document it in some way and maybe post on Instagram.
So, when you attend car shows, there's always like many photographers, right? That's like, there's no shortage of that. So, how are you able to make connections with different owners in such a way that, they end up inviting you to like, private car shoots or something of a similar way?
Usually, what I'll do is either I just like if an owner sees me or like a group of friends that I'm with, like taking a picture of the car and they happen to be around, they'll come up to us and start talking to us. That's happened to me a few times before. But usually, what I'll do is like if I've seen the car on Instagram, I won't necessarily try to search for the owner of the show. I'll DM them later and I'll say, hey, like I saw your car today. It looks really cool. Like if you're interested in having some pictures sent over, I'd be happy to email them to you. And so that's how I've met quite a few people where it's like they like those pictures enough and then they want to meet me at a show. And then once we meet at a show, start talking, they'll sometimes, not more times than not, they'll just like they'll never do a shoot because like I'm not about going out and getting shoots. Like sometimes there are people who will like the stuff I send them, like they'll like me when they meet me, and then they'll want to occasionally do a shoot sometimes. So yeah, I would say going to car shows and meeting owners is definitely a big part of it. But like I don't go to shows with only like with the sole purpose of meeting owners to then do shoots later. It's kind of like if it happens naturally, it does. But if there's no shoot, then I've still met a really cool person that hopefully I can meet and see again later, and hopefully they bring some of their stuff out from their collection.
So like what are some of the more memorable private photo shoots for you?
I'm gonna be honest. One of the ones that I like actually remember the most, and this might surprise you, is about 2 to 3 years ago. I did a shoot with a friend from Orland Park who had a bright blue wrapped E30 BMW, and he picked me up and we went out for a shoot at some locations around Downers and places where he's from. And it was like a stripped out interior, like some of the stuff like was falling off the interior of the car, but like it was really cool because that was one of the first times where I got to experience one-on-one, not just from going to a show with a bunch of people, like that people have a passion for every car, like not just the latest and greatest. Like if you have like a beat up old BMW that you're really proud of, and like I could see that he was proud to show me the car, that he was proud to show it to somebody. That's one of the shoots I remember the most. I would say the other one that I remember, and also the most recent one I did before the world fell apart, was I got to go over and shoot with a friend up north who has a Carrera GT, and like he ended up taking me for a ride in that, and that was super cool. Like I never thought that I would be able to see up close, let alone ride in one of those when I was younger. And it was like it was so cool to meet them because as I got to talk to their family, he said that their family has a bunch of involvement with the school I'm going to, and so like we talked about a bunch of stories from their experience and stories about like how I kind of got into the college. And it's just like it's cool that you're able to meet such great people over something like cars. I feel like that's something that people who don't do it don't realize. Like they just think you're out going to see cool cars. Like it's about the people, and that's what makes a lot of these shoots so memorable. Is it's like you're able to connect with them more personally around the show because like you're the only one there with them, and so like you get to figure out a lot more about like what makes them tick besides just that they have a passion for cars. So those are just a few that stick out to me.
Hmm. So speaking of kind of cool people that you've met through cars, I know that sometime last year you got to meet Shmee, who's obviously a huge YouTuber with like millions of followers on Instagram, YouTube, and you got to spend the day with him, right? And then do a photo shoot with his 4GT. So can you just tell us a little bit about what you did that day?
Yeah. Do you want me to explain like what happened leading up to it, or just like what happened that day?
Oh, can do both if you want.
Actually, let's go with what happened that day because the time before that we spent so much time getting logistics together. Like you would have thought we just decided to meet at one spot, but it took so much more to get that organized. So yeah, basically, we were at the garage that we shot. I went up with some really good friends of mine, and we all did a photo shoot in front of the skyline. And we were there, and he said to me, which I thought was like, it came out of the blue. He said to me, he said, like, thanks for organizing today, because after we went to the garage, we went to a car show in Lake Forest, and there was a massive beach shoot that a couple other people that you know were at. It was like 15 photographers there. And like we kind of organized all of that morning. And he said to me, like, thank you so much for organizing this. Show me a little bit of the car scene here. Would you like to come with me to Iron Gate and meet some of the owners there? And I was like, huh? And he was like, yeah, but I can only take you as a +1 if you're in the car with me. And so he was asking me that morning, without me knowing, do I want to go in his Ford GT from London to Iron Gate? And I was like, yes, where do I sign? And so we went there, and I remember when we were in the car, he said to me, the first thing he said to me is, don't record the speedo. And I was like, okay, I respect that, like whatever you're gonna do. And then he floors it. Like we went over 100 miles per hour in a construction zone. It's like I couldn't record that obviously, but like just some of those moments where it's like you could see he was passionate about like getting out and driving. Like he wasn't babying the car like you might think if you're doing a cross country road trip. You would think, okay, you want to baby it? He drove it, and that's what I love so much. Like that's a collector car he's gonna hold on to forever, and he wants to create memories like that with it. And I thought that was cool. And then when we went to Iron Gate, I'm not gonna lie, even though we saw so many cool owners and like a lot of cool collections, the thing that stuck out to me the most was there was a unit we went to that on the top floor had a 1950s Airstream like RV that not RV, like a camper that you put on the back of a truck. They converted it into a bed, and we had just seen a really cool Ferrari collection, and so I was thinking, okay, this unit might not have as much that he'd be interested in. I swear, and he took like 5 minutes just checking out this RV. Like it isn't just about the car, like anything that he thinks is cool, even if it isn't like the latest and greatest hypercar, he will be interested in it, and he will want to know more about it. And like that's what I think is so cool is like he doesn't just have that passion for the cars you see on his channel. Like off camera, there's so much more that like he's into, and that ended up making it his video, which I thought was cool. Like in the same video where he talked about some of the best hypercars in the Chicago area, he featured this RV that somebody converted into a bed and put it in the same video. Because like he wants to show everything he experiences, not just like all the hypercars and supercars he gets to see, which I think is really cool. And that's one thing that stuck out to me. And then just like being able to ride with him and like hear some of the stories he told me about like how much money you can make off of YouTube and like all the cars he's owned, and that like he hopes to come back again, like talking about plans for the future with the car that he had hinted that he might have bought something even then, but it turned out to be the Black Series, so he might come back with that. And just like the stories he's got from his travels all over and people he's met because of YouTube, that it was super cool to hear about all that. And that's a day that I am definitely never going to forget. And I hope that at some point in the future he will be back and we could create some more content and maybe do a little bit of a bigger meetup. Because by the end of that trip, he'd been to Newport, Miami. He didn't want to do much like public meetup stuff. So that's why he kind of kept it like more secluded, because he was tired. And I could sort of see that too, because he just finished a massive trip and we were the last stop before he flew back. So yeah, that was such a fun day.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. So, like, would you say, like, kind of the sense I get of him from watching some of his videos, he seems like a very, like, peppy, like, positive person all the time in his videos. Was he kind of like that in person?
I mean, in person, you could see, like, just because it was getting late, like, he'd been out late the night before with some other people he made a video with, and then he got up super early to meet us for the shoot. So, like, he was tired, but even though he was tired, like, he was just as passionate about everything as he was in the camera. Like, that's not a show he puts on. Like, maybe his voice inflection is different because, like, he wants to be able to hurt by the camera, obviously. But, like, in terms of passion he has, like, he is the exact same person off camera as he is on camera, and that's what I think is so cool about him. Because it's like, he kind of pioneered automotive YouTube, and he's one of those people who always stays positive. Like, I don't think I heard him swear the entire day, and I was with him for, like, 10 hours, so I thought it was really impressive. And just like the fact that he stays positive the whole time and like is always interested in meeting and learning about new people. Like there's some YouTubers who are like a little bit more private, and like they generally don't just want to like take anybody within their car. Because like I know, I didn't think before we met that day that I was gonna go for a ride in his car, because like you've never met me before, and now you're taking me for an hour-long car ride in your car you imported from here, or exported from London. So it's like, yeah, he's the same person off camera as he is on camera, basically, which I thought was super cool.
So this past February, Andy got the chance to sit down with a couple of Ford employees at the Chicago Auto Show. And they kind of discussed some of the new releases, and this includes the Mustang Mach E. And the Mach E is a car that's received loads of attention and heated discussion upon its release. So I thought it would be a good idea to hear what some employees at Ford have to say. Before we do that, though, let me just give you some basic info on the car. So the name Mach E is supposedly a reference to the legendary Mach 1 of the past, but of course, this Mustang is nothing like Mustangs of the past. It's an all-electric crossover starting at $50,000 and reaching as high as $62,000 with the top-of-the-range GT model. Speaking of range, it's between 210 and 300 miles, depending on things like what electric motors you have equipped or which battery pack you choose. The interesting bit, so the top of the line GT model makes an equivalent 459 horsepower, and this gives it a 0-60 time of under 4 seconds. So maybe it still accelerates like a Mustang should. And just kind of to round it out, the interior is equipped with imposing features such as a Bang & Olufsen speaker system and a 15.5-inch touchscreen. And while this all does seem a bit impressive, it does seem kind of Tesla to me. So anyways, enough with my opinion. Andy, what did you find out about the Mach E speaking with Ford marketing manager Jason Mace?
So the first thing Jason told me, actually, just like before we get to the interview, was that he told me he's never had somebody from a high school paper come up to him before, because I was there with my high school paper. Like they were hoping to get me an interview like that. We set it up with Ford, and it was super cool. And so he was kind of excited before the interview. So I think he kind of said a lot more to me than he would have otherwise if I was like some random person he met, because he thought it was cool to explain cars to people who will be in a position to maybe buy a car like that in a couple of years. So I think it was cool for him to give that perspective. But anyway, getting to the interview now. The first thing I remember that he told me that I thought was super striking, and I was like, why did this happen? Apparently, roughly 70% of Mustang owners, after they get their first Mustang, they sell it and they buy an SUV of some sort. And so Ford was thinking to themselves, I know that's crazy, right? Ford was thinking to themselves, how can we get the Mustang buyers to stay with Ford even though we don't have an SUV that might satisfy their thing? If they were thinking like, maybe we should do a Mustang name on an SUV, and all the executives were like, no, we can't do this. And so they built one anyway. And then some top executive, I forget who it was, but there was some executive other than Jason who drove it. And he was like, guys, this is actually like a really well-performing car, and it happens to be a Mustang four-door. And so they kept pushing the R&D on it. They kept having more people than Ford drive it. And eventually it had gotten enough approval to where they felt comfortable showing it to the Mustang like groups, and like they felt comfortable showing it to the world. And it got a bunch of criticism. Like even when we were doing our interview, I heard one person, because we were sitting pretty close to the car, I overheard one person say, who would drive this piece of crap? But as we were talking about that, like Jason was explaining to me all the cool details of it. Like he said that they could have made it a toaster or a compliance play, basically a boring car, like just to meet the regulations, have an EV. But he said they made it just about as fast as like a GT500, like a faster Mustang. So like, even though you are driving a much higher car with like much different performance, it feels like a Mustang, he said. And that's something I thought was cool, is that they knew they needed to keep the Mustang like drivability and like the enjoyment of it. Like they wanted to keep that there, but they also understand like you want to have a like EV that is fun, because other brands have been doing that, and they kind of wanted to keep up, and they felt attaching the Mustang name to it, well, it might not make much sense to the purists. That's what they felt was the best option. And from what he said at the auto show, people who have driven it who at first weren't sure about it, they drove it and they said, maybe we'll add it to the garage with our Mustang. So it seems like it's actually going to work for them long term, even though to the general populace it was certainly a big surprise when they came out with it. And everybody was upset about it. But I think you're seeing opinions turn as it's getting closer to production, which I think is going to be good for them. I think it's going to pay off.
So do you think this could be kind of like a similar like Porsche Cayenne type of situation? Because I do remember when they Porsche initially announced that they were going to do an SUV, it was the exact same thing, right? Porsche, like, purist or enthusiast or whatever you want to call them, they were like up in arms and they were like calling it sacrilegious. So is it kind of the same situation, you would think?
I think it's definitely be the same situation, because going to the Porsche thing for a second, people who only had 911s at that point, they got in it and they drove it and they were like, this is like an SUV 911. And so that's why it's doing so well, because they realized that Porsche didn't want to build an SUV. They wanted to build a 5-seat SUV with like less power, maybe a little slower, but it felt like a 911. I think that's exactly what Ford's done here. I mean, having never been in one or driven one myself, from what Jason told me, I'm pretty confident that that's how it's going to be with the Mustang, and that people who own a Mustang and then drive a Mach E, sure, there might not be as much exhaust noise because it is an EV, but they will feel like they're in a Mustang, even if they can't hear the grumble of a V6 or a V8 or whatever behind them. Like they'll know they're in a Mustang from enough characteristics, so they'll feel familiar enough to them, where I think it'll do pretty well.
So something I kind of don't really like about the car, and I guess like it's even reflected in who you talked to from Ford, right? You talked to a marketing manager. And to me, I think the word marketing really defines this car, because it does feel like a marketing ploy. Like it doesn't really feel like, it's just like Mustang trying to be Mustang. It feels like, Ford are trying to gauge the market or something like that. So, obviously this is all something that a company has to do, but, just from the point of view of, someone who's just a gearhead, do you think it's a good idea or not?
I gotta say, I was like, when it first came out of LA last year, I was super skeptical about it. Like, I was like, okay, it looks cool, but on the other hand, you just made an electric Mustang. What the hell are you doing? But then, I'm not gonna lie, I saw it in person. Jason didn't even have to talk to me. Like, once I started learning more about the features, and like once I got up close to it and I started to see the proportions, because like looking at pictures, the design makes no sense in pictures. You see it in person, it looks way better. Like, I was sold on it before the interview, and then talking to him and hearing some of like they had the same thought processes, and like that they understand what they were doing. I think they're very prepared for the market's reception of it, and I think they're ready to, like you mentioned, he's the marketing manager. I think they're ready to effectively market this to make it seem like they aren't just doing, like you said, a compliance play, where it's like they're actually trying to entice people instead of just satisfying the government. Like, hey, look, we have an EV. Like, I think that even though I see where you're coming from, I think they are going to do pretty well with this car. Whether or not Mustang people like that, I mean, we'll see. But I think there is definitely a market for this as EVs and crossovers kind of start to meet in the middle a little bit more with all the new regulations coming up.
So then would you say like this Mustang is kind of aimed at Mustang owners of the future more than like the traditional Mustang owner you would think of?
I would definitely say that the people who have been driving Mustangs since the 70s and 80s would look at this thing and go, that's a piece of crap. I totally think that's going to happen, because like the people who have been longtime purists aren't going to buy it just because it's a new Mustang. It's going to be for somebody who maybe has a newer one and is interested in upgrading, like downsizing in terms of power, but upgrading in terms of like space and like seating capacity. And I think it might be for newer buyers who like they want to be good for the environment or whatever, and they want to pick up a car that feels like the one they just owned, or for people who have never owned a Mustang and are interested in getting into it, but they also want to have like more space for their family and stuff. So I think this isn't necessarily for longtime purists. I think it's for a new market that's going to continue to grow as you see more companies thinking, okay, we need to be more environmentally conscious with our cars, which maybe not everybody likes that, but that's where the future's headed. And I think there is going to be more of a market for it actually as more younger buyers start stepping up to the plate and getting interested in fun crossover sports cars.
So obviously like a car like, the Mach E, it makes sense in a modern environment like we are in today, right? In the car industry. But, the kind of controversial bit was that they released it under the Mustang moniker, right? So Ford has had, a lot of success selling vehicles that are not branded as a Mustang. So why do you think that they just didn't decide to sell it as a Ford, but instead decided to sell it as a Mustang?
I think that something that Jason didn't tell me, but something that I've kind of thought about more and more as I think about like when I saw the car in person. I think Ford actually put the Mustang name on it because they wanted to show how confident they were in their technology, and that they, like, think about it. If you put the Mustang name on an electric four-seater, you've never done that before, there is a huge amount of pressure, because if that fails, then you've pissed off Mustang people. And there might be some small fraction who would never come back to the Mustang brand because they're willing to toy with it that much. And I think the fact that they put the name on it suggests, at least to me, that they're comfortable enough with what they've done to the car, but they're willing to make it like a Mustang. And I think it looks enough like one in person, I have to say. Like it's a four-seater sure, but it's got like the same tail lights. Like the front end looks familiar enough. It's like they've put some of the Mustang design cues into it, and I think that just shows that they've thought about this a lot. They know pretty much exactly what they're doing, and that they're willing to face some of the heat that they might take for putting a Mustang name on it, and they think that they've got something on their hands here, I think.
So, after putting in all this time now, do you think that this is a car that can kind of compete with, the Model Y or like a Teslas or any big electric cars that are already kind of prominent in the automotive industry?
I think they're definitely looking to take some market share away from Tesla because let's face it, Tesla kind of pioneered a lot of these markets we're seeing now. Even with like the Cybertruck, they're kind of tapping a market that hasn't seen much before. And I think that Ford kind of by unveiling it right around the time the Model Y did and then having it come on sale at the exact same time without the production issues Tesla sometimes has, I think they want to take away some of Tesla's thunder by putting out another fun car that's just about as fast, just about as powerful, and maybe is a little bit less expensive. And it also works, I might add, on the fast charging stations, not like the Tesla ones. Like if you go to a place where there's a charger, it will work on that. And I think he said it will give you a close to full battery in like 15 to 20 minutes, something like that. So like it will charge just about as fast as Tesla, and it seems to have just about as much driving enjoyment, like off the line and stuff like that. And so I think they are looking to take some of that market share away from Tesla. And who knows, this could be just the beginning of a Mustang family of EVs or a Ford family of EVs in general. Because I think they're thinking Tesla's getting too comfortable, and so they want to kind of surprise them with a car that they might look at and say, "Yeah, it's nothing." But then you drive it, it's like, wait, they're starting to figure us out. We've got to push ourselves even more. And so I think they're trying to not only push Tesla to take some of that market share, but also try to push EVs forward. Because if people are seeing what Ford's doing and they're starting to figure it out, then they'll want to do it too. And so it'll should create a whole new market. And I kind of think Ford's operating in multiple different fronts here in that regard.
All right. Well, thank you for all the insight on the Mach E, and thank you for coming on to the show today. It's been a lot of fun talking with you, and yeah, it's nice to have a friend on for the first time, right? Someone I already know. Hopefully you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really interesting that you had me on after an F3 driver and a Formula E team manager. It was interesting that I was following those up, but it was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you again in the future and being able to create some content maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Sorry about the dark background during the video. It's raining, so I'm gonna blame it on that. Make sure to like and subscribe. Those type of things go a long way. Always very helpful. And make sure to stay tuned for the next video. See you guys till then.